everybody, Lucas here with The Art of Healing. This video is going to turn out to be a long video. I'm going to edit it into a short, and the extended version will be on my channel. I'm going to tell a little bit about my life story, things I've been through, and possibly encourage people and try to use the steps that I've used to help heal themselves. It's up to you. I'm not a doctor, not a psychiatrist, but one thing I do know something about is trauma in life, addictions of all sorts. People put a stigma against you when they hear the word addiction. They automatically assume things. That's not the case. I don't like stigmas. And I don't like using certain language because no matter what, people look down on you. So that's one thing that I avoid from doing at all costs, especially in professional situations, things like that. Okay? My name is Lucas, of course. I was born on probably the hottest day in July, back in the late 70s. My parents divorced in the early 80s. I remember witnessing that to a point. I remember moving, and I remember helping my mom in the kitchen, and she would get some things in a paper sack. Mom always used paper sacks in them days. I think it was about all that was available. And I remember getting a stick of butter out of the refrigerator and putting it in the bag. And I remember my mom saying, "Where'd this come from?" And I told her I got it out of the fridge, and she snapped at me. Well, then she apologized to me, saying she just knew I was trying to help. I was only 3 years old. Okay? We moved into town, St. Johns, Michigan. Remember, we lived in 3 different houses in St. John's. Called the White House, Blue House, then we moved to Heim Street. That's where at the Blue House. Well, I gotta step back. I'm ahead of myself. I'm sorry. The Dome House. I can't remember. I can, but I got it out of chronological order now. We're talking about traumas here. Okay. The point of that is constantly moving. As a child. And I'm the 5th child out of 5 boys. I was always by myself. Nobody ever wanted to play with me. If they did, I was picked on, bullied, pushed on the ground, held down, spit on, made fun of. You name it, it typically happened to me. It wasn't necessarily by my brothers. My brothers didn't do that kind of garbage to me. It was mainly the neighborhood kids where we lived at in St. John's. I could tell a short story about a kid when I was in elementary school. This bully kid was picking on me, and I told him I was going to do something to him. I'm not going to say what I said I was going to do to him, but a kid at that age doesn't come up with the kind of idea that I had. Well, anyway, I remember this kid showing up in our house on Heim Street, and I was outside with an object in my hand, and he showed up with his brother too, Well, I remember my elder brother, his name was Brad, come out and ended that pretty quick for that dude. Like, yeah, they went away with their tail between their legs. So it's just where the mindset was, how much trauma I was going through. To have that certain object in my hand that said to this little kid what I was going to do to him. And okay, we're going to go on from there. I was constantly separated from my father. There's reasons behind it. Looking back, I understand. There's things that happened to me that I can't prove, but for some reason, I vaguely remember them. Okay. Sorry, I'm driving, y'all, so bear with me. So that's a trauma in itself, being separated from my father. Okay. We left Michigan and moved to Virginia. And around about 86. Again, the only person I really had around me was one of my older brothers. Of course, he's older. I had his friends. Again, I was constantly by myself. Always having to do things by myself. So I created a world inside my mind. Put myself other places. The imagination I grew was pretty incredible. There's certain things that happened during that time that I can't explain to this day. But we're talking about traumas. Okay? That right there, being by myself, is a trauma. By this time, I had a very good father in my life. His name was Bruce. Very good man. Worked all the time, took care of us when he didn't have to, but he chose to. Okay. Now, life goes on. We moved from the house where we were living at to another place. Along about 87, I believe it was. I believe it was that summer that sexual abuse started happening to me. I'm not going to go into names to anybody. Okay? Now, that's happening. Okay? And again, a little bit older. My brothers that lived with me at the time were a little bit older. Again, I'm by myself. And my brother had friends, and they took upon themselves, because I was younger, weaker, they pick on me. Okay, they do things. I'd be the one getting in trouble for this stuff. Now, was I a perfect kid? Did I do mischievous things to get in trouble? Yes, I did. However, things that were done, I got blamed for, and I had nothing to do with it. But I got spankings for it, yelled at, grounded. And all this is taking place in my mind. Meanwhile, I'm getting sexually abused by another guy. I'm a little kid. This person's well in teenager years. Pretty much an adult. Here I am, just a kid. Literally a kid. So I got all that going on. Not seeing my father. Not seeing my grandparents, which I love very dearly. Battling all this. I'm battling getting picked on by my brother and his friends. I can remember in school, I had to go to the bathroom number 2, and my brother and his friends caught me in the bathroom, kicked the door open while I was going number 2, and started throwing wet paper towel toilet balls at me and making fun of me, holding the door open, letting everybody see me going to the bathroom. Okay, I believe I was in 2nd grade, 3rd grade maybe. Okay, now that happened. Now, during this time, I also got bullied by a teacher in 3rd grade. I'm not going to say her name, but I remember one specific time I went into her classroom. I was told to be in her classroom. The paper said I was to be in her classroom, and I walked into her room, and of course, this class was apparently the smart people or something, I don't know. Well, some of my brother's friends were in this classroom. They were related to my brother's friends. This teacher grabbed me by the neck and pushed me across the room, probably a good 10 feet. I fell, hit my head on the door, and the whole classroom started laughing at me. Well, by now I'm in tears, and when I stood up and said she pushed me, she denied pushing me. Meanwhile, the class is laughing at me, and I can see in her face she's laughing at me. Okay, well, that goes on. That's over with. And I wound up having her class, but not that particular time of day. Well, she took it upon herself. She put me in a corner all by myself with me facing the wall. That's how my desk was the entire year in her classroom. Where that come from, I don't know. I know I was kind of a heathen kid. I didn't always interrupt. But you put 2 and 2 together. So what happened the other time where she pushed me out the door, and what was said about me through via my brother's friend's younger sibling, that's how my year went in her classroom. No matter what I did in her class, it was wrong. I was constantly bullied by this teacher, made fun of. If I did a paper that was good, she would tear it up and tell me it was no good, and I'd have to redo it. I can look back and some of the paper and stuff I did in her class, it was not my paperwork. She clearly would erase my answers and change them. Then question me why I changed my answers, and therefore I was failing her class. This really happened. And come parent-teacher conference day, I'd have to explain to my parents why my desk was in the corner. Okay? Me being the kid, and this teacher being the adult, they didn't take my word. It was day one, beginning of school, she put my desk in the corner, basically. That's where I was the entire year in her classroom. Then the paperwork, classwork, where she'd erase my answers and change them with wrong answers. This happened to me. It's real. It happened. 3rd grade, Chancellor Elementary. I don't recall the year, but her name was Miss, and the first letter, her last name was a D, as in dog. I've forgiven her for this and let this go. The following year, I had probably one of the most wonderful teachers a person could ever have. can't swear to it, but I know Mrs. Warden had an idea of what was happening in her classroom with me. Mrs. Warden protected me from this teacher, and I can remember getting to sit with Mrs. Warden at lunchtime next to this other teacher, and I can remember Mrs. Warden sticking up for me in front of this other teacher, and the dirty look this other teacher would give me was unreal. I remember all this stuff like it was yesterday. Okay, that's some trauma. That's in my elementary years. Now, I'm gonna go on a little bit more into my teenage years, on about middle school. I never got fancy things. I never had new clothes. Every once in a while, I would. But by now, I'm getting into rebellion stage. I'd already tried to commit suicide. I think it was in 5th or 6th grade, maybe before that. I skipped some of my trauma here because some of it I'm not going to get into right now. Because later on in my channel, I'm going to go over these individual traumas and explain some of the feelings I was having, so on and so forth. So as right now, I'm going to stop this video about 6th grade. Just to give an example of the traumas I've been through. And there's more that's happened to me. We go back to 4th grade. It's when I lost my good friend, who I recently went through a low, couldn't figure out why I was in, and trying to process it. Life happens, and this person had to leave my life. So thank you for watching. That's a little bit about me. Giving you an idea how much trauma I've had in my life. If it makes any kind of sense, I got a lot more and a lot worse stuff too. So thank you for watching. My name's Lucas, and this is The Art of Healing.